Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to introduce Mr. Vince Palamara. He is an amazing man and an astute researcher. He's the world's foremost authority on Secret Service, bar none. He has shed new light on the complicity, the guilt, and the treasonous activities that followed that allowed John F. Kennedy to be slaughtered in Dealey Plaza. Vince has 3 books, and he is considered the #1 source and reliable source of unbiased information about the good and the bad and the ugly of the Secret Service. Ladies and gentlemen, Vince Palamara.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. Pete, I'm on? I'm good? Okay. All right, I have a lot to get to. I'm going to start with a PowerPoint presentation. I'll just say in general that I'm the author of 5 books. And yeah, my latest one is Honest Answers About the Murder of President John F. Kennedy. And it covers the assassination in general words. My other 4 books, well, 3 of them were on the Secret Service and 1 was on the medical evidence. But I'm going to get to this right now. It's my PowerPoint presentation. First of all, just a test. I'm going to take that back. Can you see that? Were you able to see that? Yes? Okay. No? Couldn't see it. Okay.
No, we see your face, but not a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, let me know if you see this. Do you see that?
Click share screen at the bottom.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. Share screen. Share. Okay, how about now?
Yes, sir.
You do see it. Okay, very good. Okay, here we go.
Maximize your screen. There you go.
Okay. Let me just start that over real quick here. Okay. Okay, it's starting in a second. Hold on a minute. Okay, here we go. Yeah, the Warren Report, the Secret Service, and JFK by myself, author of 5 books, like I said. And the report would have you believe the Secret Service could not have prevented the assassination. They also left the impression that JFK was directly or indirectly responsible for the lack of security. They were dead wrong. This is a contemporary news article talking about the 26 volumes of the Warren Commission. And one of the things they said was, for instance, would Kennedy be alive today if Secret Service agents had shielded him by standing on the special steps in the back of the presidential limousine? The answer is yes. And here's some more contemporary, just a snippet of it, but Secret Service shield. President Kennedy might have been shielded by a Secret Service agent standing on the right rear step of his death car. And here's agents on the back of the car here. And here is just the previous trip to Florida. They show a lot more images than this. These are kind of small, but you'll see more. And even, again, contemporary news articles during President Kennedy's administration was argued some of the television cameramen, they could not get a good view of the president. In the Dallas motorcade, the Secret Service men were not placed around the president as closely as they have been on other occasions. Another one, contemporary questions, very interesting. For instance, why wasn't Gerald A. Bain, special agent in charge of the White House detail, in Dallas November 22nd? In fact, Jerry Bain was with the Secret Service White House detail since the FDR days, and he took his first full vacation under JFK during those almost 3 years during that fateful weekend of the Florida and Texas trips. And I call this a major discovery of mine. Multi-story building rooftops were normally guarded during the FDR, Truman, Ike, and JFK eras. In addition, a large number of police and undercover detectives normally mixed in with the crowds. This is in addition to the military and or police lining the streets and facing the crowds. I can't stress this enough. Most people think that, oh, Vince, all that happened after the assassination, right? It was in response to the assassination. No, multi-story building rooftops were guarded since the FDR era through and including the JFK era. And this is very, very interesting. This is the day of the assassination, a short little video. This is ABC's Ron Gardner to many millions of people around the world.
Vince, we do not have sound. Turn this down on the video. Stop share.
You can't, you're not
Okay.
hearing it.
You have to stop share. You have to reshare with computer sound.
Okay.
So stop share and then we'll share again with computer sound.
Share screen, share with computer sound. Where's that at? Oh, share sound, share sound. Okay.
Carefully scrutinized for firing the shot. It's most unusual.
We're good now.
That such a thing could happen because of the unusually tight security measures that are ordinarily taken by the Secret Service who guard the president. And normally any vantage point, a rooftop, and windows which command a parade route are carefully scrutinized and carefully guarded, and men are usually posted on rooftops along a parade route, particularly if there is any reason at all to suppose that there might be someone in the area who would have such ideas as assassination in his mind regarding the president. These precautions, of course, are taken by the Secret Service for all presidents, as they have been for many years.
In that clip, I just found earlier this year. It was in the midst of hours and hours of ABC footage. So pretty amazing. And we'll go ahead here. Let's see here. Okay. Let me skip through here. Find my place again. Let's see here. Okay, sorry about that. This is from a 1962 book. What would the Secret Service do? Again, 1962, Chief Rowley. It was also written with the help of Chief Inspector Michael Trina, who I spoke to both gentlemen. And they confirm what you see here, and you'll see it in larger print. Just basically saying the president's to appear in a parade. Agents and police are assigned posts atop buildings. Again, it's the year before the assassination. Here it is again. If the president's to appear in a parade, agents or police are assigned to top buildings and on the parade route. So again, this is before the assassination. This was out there, but again, it's just a long out of print book. I found this many years later. Just like that video I just found earlier this year, I had to pay a lot of fees to get newspaper articles you'll see coming up. A lot of this was not well known, to put it mildly. This is from, again, JFK was still alive when this came out. This came out early 1962. And the large part you'll see is that the agents, they guard the rooftops, sewers, and balconies along the route that the president will follow. There's a picture of Special Agent in Charge Jerry Bain. It's an article that was seen around the world. But again, you know, these things are long gone out of print. You have to pay fees. You have to look on eBay for them. That's where we're at, you know, with a lot of information. This is amazing. It's the summer of '63, okay? President will have plenty of protection while abroad. They asked local authorities to put police on top of buildings. So again, look at that, amazing. And I had to pay a fee. It's like $50 from newspaper.com, but that's another story in itself. See, these aren't readily available. You can't just Google them. They're buried in newspaper archives, but there it is, summer '63. They asked local authorities to put police on top of buildings. And just articles in general, Secret Service men keep presidents safe abroad at home. Don't fret, JFK will be safe abroad. These are all for the summer of '63. More of the same, president on European trip to have heavy protection. And this is great. This is just talking about how from 1954, from the Secret Service manual in effect, about how you're supposed to keep suspicious persons away from windows and rooftops. This came out right after the assassination. Former Chief Huey Bauman said the clearing of buildings on Parade Route called fundamental, and talk about this was true in all buildings along Pennsylvania Avenue during presidential inaugural parades and in buildings along out-of-town motorcade routes. So keep that in mind. This is the FDR era. 10,000 policemen stationed along the motorcade route. Rooftops were ordered clear, spectators, and the Secret Service and probably the FBI were on the job. So again, goes back to FDR. Where's typical security for FDR? There's Truman era. Police detectives along the street, officers guard, and you get just in the interest of time building rooftops. There's more from the Truman era about some perched on hills and buildings, 300 police, Truman heavily guarded. Truman heavily guarded. Imagine if JFK would have got this kind of protection in Dallas, just like you can look to the FDR I just showed, same thing. There's a reasons why presidents lived before JFK. It wasn't rubbing a rabbit's foot. Ike era, same thing. Every rooftop covering the windows, access roads were blocked, so they guarded rooftops. More Ike, that they stood with some machine guns on top of buildings or rooftops. More different trip this time, talking about buildings and rooftops, same thing. This is Eisenhower. This is 1957. There's the partial bubble top, and there's motorcycle police and mounted police, and also lining the streets, the Secret Service. And now the JFK era. Keep in mind, JFK only went on a select amount of motorcades. He didn't go on hundreds of motorcades. This is the grand total of motorcades, 61, 62, 63. Here we go, that's it. So we're not talking about a whole bunch. It's easy to dissect the motorcades by using this information. Nashville. Men took their posts at 8 a.m. and remained at the top station of the president and his party passed. Other buildings along the route. Can't just stress this enough. I used to have this from the Nashville Banner, an old yellowy newspaper, disintegrated. I got it in 1999 from researcher Bill Adams, but luckily JFK in Nashville, the book came out in 2013 and reprinted this. So there you go. Building rooftops were guarded May of '63. This is from a different newspaper in Nashville. Hundreds of policemen and plainclothes detectives were scattered through the crowd. This is how they protected presidents back then. They didn't always have a police state. They didn't always have tons of men on the car and so forth. What they did is they would have many policemen and detectives in the crowds. They had the building rooftops guarded, among other procedures. Just talking about more about how Truman, they blocked every line of travel along the route in Nashville. There's a picture of the Nashville motorcade, one part of it. You can see agents around the car. Milwaukee, May of '62. We have to police the tops of buildings too, and all bridges and viaducts along the route. That's the chief of police in Milwaukee, Dahl. We have to police the tops of buildings too. Keep that in mind. Guard up for JFK every second when he was in Wisconsin. Guard from above by city policemen. See, that's how they did it back then. So if you're looking at the occasional newsreel from different trips to JFK, and every once in a while it looks like he's a quote unquote sitting duck, like he was in Dallas, no. Unlike in Dallas, building rooftops were guarded and hundreds of police were intermingled in the crowds. So that's two major ways they thwarted potential assassins. Keep in mind, this is before 9/11 for the threat of terrorism. So this was more about worried about handguns and pistols and whatnot. And just saying the same thing, it's the Milwaukee newspaper again, how they security was their main concern, and they had police officers at all intersections along the route. And this is Milwaukee again. See, look, here we go. Look at the police and undercover people. Is this a sample right there with the arrows of what they did? This is how presidents lived back then, and police were on top of the buildings too, which you cannot see in the photographs because they're concentrated on Kennedy. Paris. 10,000 policemen and Republican security guards were on duty on rooftops when the Kennedys will visit. That's how Kennedy survived Paris. Hey, and this is that same article again. And look, there's the men right there, the officers. This is a Getty image of the motorcade. He's surrounded by all these horsemen, these policemen on horseback. And there you go, Kennedy. And yeah, that's how he lived. There it is again. There's JFK's in that car. And this is all the mounted police, and they're on top of rooftops as well. Paris again, look at the great motorcycle formation. Think about Dallas. He only had 4 measly outriders. They were put behind the car, making them totally ineffective and useless. Here again, talking about Paris rooftops. This is it when he's Caracas, Venezuela. Helicopters hovered over the official motorcade along the route from the airport into the city. And there was soldiers and police guarding the line of travel. Again, you had to pay a fee through newspapers.com for this. This wasn't something you could Google and find very easily. These are long out of print newspapers and whatnot. And you had to be somebody like me, the one to dig for them. But again, helicopters hovered over the route. Again, about helicopters hovering over the route in Caracas. Talking about when he's in Canada, others will be circulating among the crowds, talking about his bodyguards and whatnot. Rooftops again, and another trip in the Midwest for JFK. Look at that, some manning rooftops. But again, all these newspapers are long out of print, long gone. Other police guard the fire escapes and rooftops, talking about a trip to New York. These are all before the assassination. They were spotted on rooftops among the crowds and cars flanking President Kennedy's convertible in unlikely places, which must remain secret. This is from the inaugural. A complete survey of all buildings, water mains, sewers, etc. were done. So inaugural, that was done. That's standard, but it was also done elsewhere. Talking about rigid security measures for Kennedy's inaugural. Talking about they'll be on every rooftop. More or less the same thing here. And this is Chief Rowley talking about how the manhole covers were sealed against accidental explosions or whatnot, or intended explosions, and how the Secret Service looked at the crowds. This is from Gary Severson, researcher. He said that he was a witness to sharpshooters on the roof of the arena, University of North Dakota campus. Larry Yetka was an official in Duluth, and he said, yeah, the security was tight as hell. Men were on the rooftops. This is September 63 when JFK went to Duluth. Security men were on top of the roofs. And this is Australian, this guy is a savant. He's a JFK historian from Australia. And he just adds about the security in Duluth was very tight. National Guard were deployed along the motorcade route. And this is when Kennedy went to Aliquippa. Police were on rooftops. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I know this is like the third time I'm saying it, but it really needs to be, sent home. But it's only because of little old me paying fees, looking through newspaper archives, dredging microfiche, et cetera, that these things are come out. You won't read them in books. You won't read them in assassination articles and whatnot. So there you go. And this is amazing. This came out only in 2013. This is an image from a police helicopter. This is from a police helicopter. This is San Antonio, the day before the assassination. There's JFK's limousine, Secret Service follow-up car. So a police helicopter was filming the motorcade as it went along. Imagine if that would have happened the next day in Dallas. Again, Australian JFK expert Mark Henderson's been studying this case since day one. Vince, the rooftops in Fort Worth were guarded. This comes from Mike Howard, the Secret Service agent. I've also heard Mike Howard say that as well. The rooftops were guarded in Fort Worth. Ironically, they had a police officer stationed on the roof of the Trademark in a market hall. It's a shame, officially speaking, there were no police officers guarding the buildings in Dallas, specifically Dealey Plaza, and history would have been changed. This is when he went to Seattle, building rooftops. And this is more in the interest of time. I'm going to go through these a little more. Same thing, Seattle, just talking about how this guy was saying how security was so tight that he was sent to the roof, and talk about the same thing, that they watched all the windows and whatnot. Security rehearsal for JFK's trip to Vienna. Helicopter will hover over the locomotive, and talking about the security for both men. This is amazing. This came from George McNally, White House Signal Corps, former Secret Service agent. This is an excerpt from my book, quoting his book, but saying that March 23rd, 1963, there was a threat of Puerto Rican snipers, and helicopters searched the roofs along the way. And Don Lawton, who will become infamous in a moment, Secret Service agent Don Lawton, rode on the rear of the limousine on that trip. So pretty amazing. Just talking about more about the rooftops, another trip to New York, Kennedy, when Kennedy was going to Tennessee, talking about how some buildings will be guarded. And again, South was a dangerous place. And this came from Deb Galantine. Her father was a police officer, trip to Billings, Montana, and confirmed the building rooftops were guarded. This is amazing. It's from my own hometown. When Kennedy came to Pittsburgh in October of '62, we had men, police officers, on every bridge and culvert, on every high spot and ground overlooking the President's Ride. These men were expert marksmen, armed with rifles on the roofs of buildings, and they were ordered to watch the building the windows of buildings and not the parade. If someone had appeared at a window of a gun, they would have been shot. Just talking about again, and it was a secondary car in addition to the Secret Service follow-up car. And they had their rifles and submachine guns aimed as well. That's why Kennedy survived Pittsburgh. But you won't see agents on the back of the car in Pittsburgh. That's not the point. He didn't always have agents on the back of the car, but he did have this kind of what I call covert security. Here he is. Hey, is this part of Pittsburgh? There's a police officer on the rooftop. There's another one. There's another one. There's someone's on the ground here. There's another one on the rooftop way back there. There's a woman police officer. And there's a extreme blow up of the one you just saw. There's a police officer right there. There he is. Soldiers line, JFK rot in Venezuela. That's why Kennedy survived. This is amazing. This is the trip before the Texas trip in Florida. The sheriff's office secured the roofs of major buildings in the downtown and suburban areas. Incredible. And this is how they guarded areas where there was not multi-story building rooftops. So these ranch styles, they were guarded by military police and just regular police. See, there's the military police and there's a regular police officer. That's how they did for roof, the ranch style buildings. And this is Russell Groover, who was the lead Tampa motorcycle officer, and he confirms, oh yeah, Vince, on every building along the route was manned on every floor and roof of either law enforcement or military, all armed. So that's how they protected him when he went to Florida. Here's two agents on the back of a car on that trip to Florida. Don Lawton, we just spoke about, and Chuck Zaboral. Hang on the back car, 28 miles long, yet Dallas is only 11 miles. 28 miles, they were able to protect Kennedy tremendously. He gets to Dallas, the city he's warned about, and the security's wide open, no matter on the roofs, no matter by the car, and other security measures were taken away, you'll see in a moment. I'm just talking about more about how in Florida, they got buildings along the route that they guarded. Here, the JFK's trip to Miami.
Vince, can you repeat that, please? Can you repeat that, please?
About his trip to Miami?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, when Kennedy went to Miami, this came from an article.
Okay. It was a little fast and people missed that, so reinforce that point, please.
Oh, no problem. Thanks a lot. Yes, is NBC News article for the 50th anniversary. Bob Helsher. This comes from my book, but the actual article is sourced there. And he's talking about he was a counter sniper on the terrace deck of a hotel when Kennedy arrived in Miami. So again, I can't stress this enough. This didn't just happen after the fact. These measures were in place since FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, and throughout the Kennedy administration. But he gets to Dallas and rooftops were unguarded. There were no counter snipers. People have a tendency to think, oh, that only happened after the assassination. No. And again, it was little old me out in the wilderness, amateur me, who was digging this stuff up. And that's how this came to be. This is the Florida trip again. We see Lawton and Zaboral in the back of the car. Sometimes they stood, sometimes they crouched a little bit. Sometimes they crouched to get a better view of the people on street level. And they also crouched because 28 miles long, if you're standing, you're going to get sore after a while. You got to crouch a little bit out of necessity. And this agent, by the way, here on the back of this is the Secret Service follow-up car is Glenn Bennett, who was making his first official trips as a Secret Service agent on the Florida trip and Texas trip. He was normally a protective research agent. Those agents monitored threats to the president, and all of a sudden he's putting motorcades on the Florida and Texas trips. Very suspicious, to put it mildly. This is a great color photo. This came across last year. This is the Tampa trip. They were flying. You can see all the motorcycle officers surrounding the limousine. You can see it's blurry. There's an agent hanging on the back car. That's Chuck Zaboral. So that's another reason why Kennedy lived. Nice speed. The car was surrounded by motorcycles, armed men, obviously trained eye-and-ear witnesses, and men being on the back of the car in that case. Again, more from Tampa, Florida. Outstanding motorcycle coverage. Agents on the back of the car crouching. There's Chuck Zaboral's head. There's the aforementioned Glenn Bennett. A couple of men that were on the Texas trip, George Hickey and Tim McIntyre. This is
Vince,
good. Yes.
Judith was wondering if you could move to what exactly happened in Dallas and how he was not protected.
Okay, well, I'm going to do that. I'll get in a second.
What really happened in Dallas?
Okay, well, I'm going to get to that aside. I just wanted to show some of these just real quick. This is Pueblo. I'll go through this real quick. This is Pueblo, Colorado. There's National Guardsmen on the rooftop, and there all the arrows point to the men guarding the route. There's a blow up of the National Guardsmen on the rooftop. This is Kennedy using Eisenhower's vehicle, and there's a police officer on the rooftop. Okay, and you can see more police officers. And less obvious, we did thousands of plainclothesmen and West German police in their light green uniforms. That's how they did it, thousands of police officers. And there's Kennedy in Germany, agents on the back of the car. There's agents on the back of the car in Germany. There's the outstanding motorcycle coverage in England. Prior threats were well known to the Secret Service. And this is before 1963, before the assassination. JFK threat brings alert. Threat to JFK. Again, look, Tampa, they had threats on Kennedy in Tampa, the trip before, the Texas trip. Okay, in the interest of time, then I'll go through that right now. Okay, well, the big thing is the Secret Service is the boss of the president, not the other way around. Okay, in fact, we'll minimize this real quick here. Just gonna minimize this. Can you see me? Yes?
Yes, and a moon. No. Stop share. There you go. You got it.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. Well, the Secret Service is the boss of the president, not the other way around. Most people have a tendency to think, well, Vince, these Secret Service agents were like butlers and errand boys, right? No, when it comes to his security, the Secret Service was the boss. That comes from Truman, Lyndon Johnson, President Clinton, other people, other presidents have said it matter-of-factly. So they were the ones calling, pardon the pun, calling the shots here when it came to security. Even if, like Clint Hill said, even if, Kennedy might have told you what to do, whatnot, and we listened to the president and do what we felt was best anyway. And again, agents on or near the limousine, if they would have been near the limousine in Dallas, I think things would have been a lot different. Instead, they had to run the limousine when it's all over. Clint Hill only gets to the back of the car when the shooting's all over and done with. He's staring at Kennedy in Alkin's film when Kennedy has his head blown off. Only then does he leap onto the back of the car. He's supposed to be his big hero, but he's late because he was one of the agents drinking the night before. Normally, 3 to 6 motorcycles were on each side of the limousine in a bracketing formation. But supposedly the night before, Win lost the Secret Service, the planning meeting with police officers says, oh, Kennedy doesn't want motorcycles beside the car. We can make this 4 and they're going to be behind the rear wheels, which makes them totally useless. They can't do anything. They're not going to be able to cover or anything in a small number and behind the rear wheels. When Win Lawson testified to the Warren Commission, he admitted under oath to, ironically, Allen Dulles that, well, not in this instance did Kennedy really say anything, but it was my understanding that Kennedy didn't like a lot of motorcycles around the car. The prior Texas trip, San Antonio, Houston, Fort Worth, his limousine surrounded by motorcycles at countless other trips before Dallas. And again, as I said, I showed in very tremendous detail about the multi-story building rooftops were guarded since the FDR was not done in Dallas. On 1/3 of JFK's motorcade, 1/3 is through photo discoveries and whatnot, the bubble top was used either in partial form or the full bubble top. When I say partial, sometimes the front and back pieces were on and just, so the middle part was able to be, so JFK gets some air and whatnot, intermittently stand. And that was an option not explored. Sam Kinney, the driver of the fob car, Secret Service agent, told me that Sam, was solely responsible for the bubble tops removal, and Kennedy had nothing to do with it. Kenny O'Donnell had nothing to do with it. Sam Kinney told me this is one of the things he lived with regret for years. He told me it's in the early 1990s, but again, Sam said he was solely responsible for the bubble tops removal. It might not be sinister per se, but when you realize 1/3 of his motorcades had a bubble top, often in very nice, beautiful weather, no rain and whatnot, it makes you think, wow, too bad they didn't explore that option. Press photographer's flatbed truck. In interesting time, I was going to show you a video, but I guess I won't have time to get to it. This basically, normally flatbed truck was in front of the limousine filming the motorcade. In fact,
You have time to show the video.
oh, I do have time to show the, okay. I'll show you that real quick. Okay. All right, I'm gonna just shoot to it real quick. This is various to the bubble topic I'm just saying. I'll show you the video coming up. See, look at all the photos of the bubble top on various trips. Beautiful weather, no rain. It was common for him to use the bubble top. 1/3 of his motorcades is quite a bit.
Hey, do share and share audio. Screen share.
Okay. Can you hear that?
No.
Can you hear
No.
me?
Yeah, I
Can
can
you
hear
hear-
you, but do not see
That's
a
all right. The
video.
video, I haven't got to the video yet. You're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Okay, I'm getting to it in a second. Okay. Okay. Can you hear that? Did you hear that little bit? Let's test the
No.
audio. How
No,
about now?
no. You need to share screen with computer sound. Okay, there we go.
Okay, you hear it? Okay, good. How about now?
At Love,
Yes.
everything went fine up to the point that the whole day became great frustration for a photographic person. First thing, parades were usually handled with a flatbed truck for pool and certain selected photographic personnel to ride in front of the presidential car on presidential parades. That was canceled at the last minute. We were put in Chevrolet convertibles to ride several cars back. I think we were about 6 cars, Bob Jackson and I, and a couple other boys were in this parade. And that put us totally out of the picture.
Okay. And I'm gonna shoot to one more video.
Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway. Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway.
Okay, you hear me now?
What did he say?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
But what did
what
he
Cl-
say in that recording just then?
Just now, that's why I had the transcript on top and I repeated twice. What Clint Hill was saying, and this is only in 2010, it goes against everything he said in his books, him and Gerald Blaine. He's saying that the president could tell you certain things, he could tell you what to do, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we always used to do is agree with the president, then we did what we felt was best anyway, which goes to my research that the Secret Service was the boss of the president, which is what President Truman, President Johnson, and President Clinton have said on record through the years when they were talking about the Secret Service. When it came to Secret Service security, didn't matter if the president said, hey, I don't want those agents in the back of the car, they would just blow him off and do what they felt was best anyway. And that's what Clint Hill was admitting. I guess it's for posterity, but yet if you read his books, you come across with, wow, it sounds like Kennedy was a real taskmaster. He didn't want agents in the back of the car. He didn't want the bubble top. He didn't want motorcycles beside the car. How convenient, the man's dead, and yet they blame him. And yeah, I don't know if that was for posterity. It blew my mind when I saw it. I could not believe that Clint Hill said that. And I just kept on, I'll never forget when I discovered that. I repeated over and over again. Obviously made a little snip of it, fair use snippet of it, because I just could not believe it. Nowhere else has he said that, which is amazing to me that he actually was on record. So now, to be fair now, Clint Hill was very much corroborated by the agents I spoke to, Special Agent in Charge Gerald Bain, who was the special in charge of the White House detail, told me, I don't remember Kennedy ever saying anything about not having agents on the back of the car. If you look at the newsreels, you'll see agents on there. And many of his colleagues said the same thing. It was almost like they were reading a cue card. This was the early 1990s. This is before the internet really kicked in. This is before I was a nobody. I didn't have a book yet. No one knew who I was. And I'm calling these guys all over the country, cold calling them. And they're talking to some guy, and the stranger, and they could have just lied and said, oh, yeah, President Kennedy didn't want us on the back of the car, blah, blah, blah. And so they're all telling me the same thing over and over again. And it was unbelievable to me, because it's like, wow. If you read the Warren Report, Death of a President, and other books, you'll think, wow, it's just the exact opposite. I thought Kennedy didn't want that security, that he was supposedly reckless of his personal life and reckless of his security. It turns out not to be the case. So like Judith was asking the $64 million question, wow, Vince, why wasn't this done in Dallas? Kennedy would have lived. Why indeed? and the Secret Service is responsible. I don't mean as an organization. Many of these men were honorable men. But when it comes down to it, the reason things were done and not done is because of the Secret Service. They pulled the security away, and oftentimes they blame Kennedy for it. We would have had agents on near the limousine. We would have had the motorcycles bracketing the limo. We would have had building rooftops guarded. We would have had more overt agents and police officers in Dealey Plaza and other places. In fact, in the interest of time, I didn't show you, but there was a film and photo earlier in the motorcade. Oh, I'm sorry, earlier in 1963, of Kennedy made a trip to California, and agents are on the back of the car, yet there's hardly anybody on the street, and it's a beautiful no-rain day, and there's 2 agents hanging on the back of the car in California. So that debunks the whole notion about, oh, Vince, it's only when there was large crowds would they do these things. Wrong. And again, like Clint Hill also says in some documentaries lately, he says, well, we wouldn't have had men on the back of the car because we were going too fast. Yet Bob Lilly, an agent, said that, oh, he rode on the back of the car when they were going 50 miles an hour in Puerto Rico. And there's other clips they're going quite a bit faster in Dallas, and they're hanging on the back of the car. Point being, in Tampa, there was times that they were really going very fast, as what Tampa motorcycle officer Russell Groover told me. So just basically to sum it all up, that's where we're at. I mean, you know, yeah, my focus in a general way has been on the conspiracy and whatnot. But as far as the Secret Service, I've been mad since day one whenever I've seen Zapruder film as a 12-year-old kid in the 70s up to now. Because, you know, it's not Monday morning quarterbacking. If the Secret Service would have done their normal protective functions, Kennedy lives. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot.
Okay, do you have time for questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Vince Palamara.
Vince, can you stop share screen, please?
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I can hear you good.
We did have a question from Gordon Ferry. Gordon?
Yeah, right here. Right here.
Yes, you may remember me.
You got to get close to the mic. He wants to make a bridge with you and start talking about what we know. He's ready to start revealing Secret Service names and wants to get with you on some of the procedures for that.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
He wants to get it right. Gordon Ferry.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay. Now Judith has a question. He said he'd do it. We get you two gentlemen connected offline.
Okay.
Hear me?
Yeah, right here.
Can you hear me? Okay. This, your stuff is so important. I would like you very much to summarize 1, 2, 3, very slowly, so everyone can write this stuff down. What the Secret Service did not do.
Did you catch that, Vince?
No, I didn't. I can hear you just fine, but everyone else, it's real murky. You might want to just translate it for me.
Okay. Judith Baker would like you to do a summary, 1, 2, and 3, what the Secret Service exactly did not do in Dallas.
Okay, I'll make it real brief.
A
Okay,
summary.
summary. What they didn't do was They didn't allow the motorcycle officers to bracket the limousine in good numbers. Normally they would have done that, but supposedly Kennedy didn't want that done, which is a lie. So the motorcycles weren't surrounding the car. You would have seen many more motorcycles in good numbers surrounding the car, professional irony or witnesses who were armed. So you had that out of the way. Normally the option of the bubble top, either partial or full, would have been on the car. Secret Service decision not to be there. Normally agents would have been on the back of the car or near the rear of the car. And supposedly Kennedy didn't want that, which is a lie. That's why they weren't there. Normally building rooftops would have been guarded. And this has happened since the FDR days. And for some bizarre reason, building rooftops were not guarded. Gerald Blaine of the Kennedy detail claims that we didn't have the manpower. You did the manpower in Tampa 4 days before when it was a 28-mile motorcade. When it's 11-mile motorcade in Dallas, they don't have the resources. Normally it's a flatbed truck in front of the limousine. And it was canceled last minute. Tom Dillard has said in other interviews, and other people said the Secret Service is responsible for that. Ted McHugh, the military aide, not Ted McHugh, Ted Clinton, McHugh, I forget his name right now, his first name, but he was the military aide who normally sat between the driver and the special agent in charge. He was told for the first time not to ride in the limousine. He was there in Tampa, he was there in Germany, he was there in countless other trips. Normally there's a military man between the driver and the special agent in charge. He was told by the Secret Service to accentuate full exposure. Military and or police were not lying in the street facing the crowd. The few officers were there were just facing the limousine. They were useless. You're supposed to face the crowd. There was nobody intermingled in the crowds. The Secret Service was responsible for all this happening and not happening. Underpasses should have been guarded, and the underpass was wide open in Dealey Plaza. As Win Lawson said to his consternation when they get to Dealey Plaza, he looked over and he saw railroad workers were on top of the underpass. Secret Service agents of mysterious repute were behind the knoll, and yet officially there were no Secret Service agents there. Some people say, well, maybe there were CIA spooks, Vince. My thing is maybe they were real agents and they covered it up after the fact. They didn't want people to know there was professional ear witnesses back there, or maybe there's something nefarious for them being there. So it's not always, CIA men and so forth. So there you go. It's cover and evacuate. And also you have the driver of the limousine, Thomas Shipman, one of his regular drivers, dies the month before in Camp David. Okay. And yet Bill Greer drives him very ineptly in Dallas, looks back twice at Kennedy, doesn't hit the gas, disobeys a direct order to get out of line. We've been hit, as well as common sense and training. If Bill Greer hits the gas, everything else is a moot point. Kennedy lives. He's either not shot, or at least the fatal shot doesn't come. And many doctors said he would have lived through the shot that went through his neck, or well, I believe it was a front shot, but either way, he would have lived. See, you have all that. Protective intelligence was horrible. Dallas was a town that was, many people warned Kennedy, J. William Fulbright, Pierre Salinger, the list goes on, Adlai Stevenson, don't go to Dallas, Mr. President. And yet the Secret Service supposedly found no threats to the president in Dallas. That would be like former President Obama going to Mississippi and there's no threats to him. Come on, give me a break. And yet they found no threats in Dallas, Texas. So that's how he did, security stripping. It's not a matter of pulling the triggers, it's allowing the triggers to be pulled. It's action through inaction.
Thank you, Vince, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Vince Palamara.
Thanks a lot.
Turn it up. He's gone. He's gone.
Tell you what I was going to tell him, because it's you I wanted to know. In 2019, we gave Vince Palamara the Justice for JFK Award for all of his body of work. And I asked him how he got started in his assassination research. And he said he met with Penn Jones Jr. And Penn said, pick a subject, study the hell out of it. I think you can agree. Vince Palamara did just that. He's the expert now on the Secret Service. And I'm grateful that he's here. I'm grateful he's contributing to our body of knowledge of what did and did not happen in 1963.